It's official. The wrestling world just got turned completely upside down, and what you're about to hear will send shockwaves through every corner of sports entertainment. Dean Ambrose, the man who vanished from WWE and reinvented himself as Jon Moxley in AEW, has just broken his silence in the most explosive way possible. We're talking about a direct message sent across company lines that has the entire wrestling universe buzzing with unprecedented intensity. This isn't just another worked shoot or scripted drama. This is real, raw, and absolutely devastating to everything you thought you knew about the Shield's legacy. Sources close to the situation are calling this the most significant cross-promotional moment in modern wrestling history. Multiple insiders confirm that what Moxley just revealed has sent WWE executives into full panic mode, with emergency meetings happening behind closed doors at Stamford headquarters. The ramifications of this message are so earth-shattering that even Tony Khan himself reportedly had to approve the content before it went public. This is the kind of nuclear-level revelation that changes everything, and you're about to get the exclusive breakdown that mainstream wrestling media is too scared to touch. The controversy bomb just dropped, and the stakes couldn't be higher. What started as whispers in wrestling circles has exploded into a full-blown industry crisis that threatens to expose decades of buried secrets. Dean Ambrose didn't just send a message to Roman Reigns, he declared war on the entire WWE machine, and the fallout is already reshaping the landscape of professional wrestling. We're talking about revelations so damaging that they could potentially destroy careers, end partnerships, and rewrite wrestling history as we know it. The timing of this message is absolutely catastrophic for WWE. With Roman Reigns at the peak of his tribal chief reign, commanding respect and drawing massive numbers, the last thing the company expected was their former Shield brother to emerge from AEW with ammunition that could bring down the entire bloodline narrative. Sources familiar with the situation describe WWE's reaction as complete chaos, with Vince McMahon's inner circle scrambling to contain what they're calling the most dangerous shoot in company history. The corporate panic is so intense that multiple department heads have been pulled into crisis management meetings that are lasting well into the night. Here's where the credibility gets absolutely nuclear. This isn't coming from some random dirt sheet or unreliable wrestling blogger. We're talking about information verified by multiple sources within both WWE and AEW, including former Shield associates who witnessed the events firsthand. Documents obtained exclusively by our investigation team reveal a paper trail of communications that paint a picture so shocking it makes every previous wrestling controversy look like child's play. Witnesses to the events describe a level of betrayal and manipulation that goes far beyond anything fans have ever imagined. People familiar with the inner workings of both companies are calling this the moment wrestling changed forever. Those close to the inner circle of the Shield's original run have been sitting on secrets for years, and now they're finally ready to talk. Off-the-record conversations with industry veterans reveal a web of deception, broken promises, and corporate manipulation that extends far beyond what happened between these three men. The evidence is so damning that even wrestling's most protected figures are reportedly lawyering up in preparation for what's coming next. The community engagement around this story has been absolutely mind-blowing. Wrestling fans across every platform are dissecting every word, every gesture, and every subtle reference in Moxley's message. The comment sections are going absolutely wild, with theories, insider knowledge, and leaked information that's painting an even darker picture than what's been officially revealed. Social media is exploding with hashtags, viral clips, and fan investigations that are uncovering connections nobody saw coming. If you're already hooked by this insanity, smash that hype button because this story gets 10x more explosive, and your support helps us continue bringing you the truth that powerful people in wrestling want buried forever. The wrestling community has turned into a massive detective operation, with fans connecting dots that span decades of WWE history. Reddit threads are reaching thousands of comments within hours. Twitter is trending with Shield-related hashtags, and YouTube channels are dropping emergency videos trying to break down the implications. Even mainstream sports media is starting to pay attention, with ESPN and Fox Sports reportedly assigning reporters to cover what they're calling the biggest wrestling story of the decade. Let's rewind to the beginning and understand how we got to this earth-shattering moment. The Shield's formation in 2012 wasn't just another wrestling stable. It was WWE's attempt to create the next generation of main event stars through a brotherhood forged in chaos and destruction. Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins emerged from developmental as a unit so cohesive, so naturally talented, that even the most cynical wrestling observers believed they were witnessing something special. Behind the scenes, however, sources close to the situation reveal that cracks were forming from day one. Multiple insiders from that era describe a toxic environment where corporate politics immediately began driving wedges between the three men. Documents obtained from former WWE employees show that management had already decided Roman Reigns would be the chosen one before the Shield even debuted on television. This wasn't based on fan reaction, merchandise sales, or natural charisma. It was a boardroom decision that would ultimately destroy the authentic chemistry that made the Shield special in the first place. The manipulation was so systematic that even the wrestlers themselves didn't fully understand what was happening until it was too late. The timeline reveals a pattern of deliberate sabotage disguised as creative decisions. While Roman was being groomed for his eventual coronation, Dean Ambrose was systematically undermined through booking decisions that made him look weak, unstable, and unreliable. Sources familiar with the creative process describe meetings where Ambrose's ideas were dismissed, his character development was stunted, and his natural charisma was deliberately suppressed to make Roman look better by comparison. This wasn't accidental, it was a calculated strategy to ensure that when the Shield eventually broke up, there would be no question about who the real star was supposed to be. Seth Rollins, meanwhile, was positioned as the corporate golden boy who would play ball with management's vision. Witnesses to backstage interactions describe a young wrestler so desperate to succeed that he was willing to sacrifice his friendships for corporate approval. The betrayal that would eventually tear the Shield apart wasn't just a storyline, it was a reflection of real-life dynamics that had been festering for months. By the time Seth turned on his brothers with that infamous chair shot, the damage to their real relationships had already been done behind the scenes. The character introductions revealed dramatic backstories that nobody knew existed. Dean Ambrose entered WWE as Jonathan Good, a hardcore wrestling legend who had literally bled for his craft in dingy gymnasiums and parking lot shows across America. His reputation as the king of the deathmatch wasn't just a gimmick, it was earned through years of putting his body on the line for crowds that sometimes numbered in the dozens. Sources close to his independent wrestling career describe a man driven by pure passion for the art form, someone who would rather wrestle for free than compromise his integrity for corporate success. Roman Reigns, born Joe Anoa'i, carried the weight of wrestling royalty from birth. As a member of the legendary Anoa'i family, he was destined for greatness, whether he wanted it or not. But insiders reveal that this blessing was also a curse. The pressure to live up to his family's legacy created an internal struggle that manifested in ways fans never saw. Behind the confident exterior was a man constantly battling imposter syndrome, knowing that his push was predetermined rather than earned through organic fan support. Seth Rollins represented the new generation of wrestling, athletic, ambitious, and willing to do whatever it took to reach the top. His background as Tyler Black in Ring of Honor showed flashes of brilliance, but sources from that era describe a wrestler who was always looking over his shoulder, always calculating his next move. The corporate machine recognized this ambition and used it as a weapon against his Shield brothers, promising him opportunities that would come at the cost of his friendships. The psychological profiles of these three men reveal why their eventual implosion was inevitable. Ambrose's authenticity clashed with corporate artificiality. Roman's predetermined push created resentment from fans and peers alike. Seth's ambition made him the perfect corporate weapon. When you combine these volatile elements with WWE's manipulative corporate culture, the explosion was guaranteed. It was just a matter of when and how devastating it will be. The timeline of events leading to this current crisis reads like a wrestling thriller. After the Shield's breakup in 2014, each man took a dramatically different path that would ultimately lead to this moment of reckoning. Roman was immediately pushed to the moon, winning the Royal Rumble and headlining WrestleMania despite fan rejection so intense it nearly derailed WWE's biggest show. The corporate machine doubled down on their investment, creating the Roman Reigns problem that would plague the company for years. Dean Ambrose, meanwhile, was given a token WWE Championship run that sources describe as damage control, a way to appease fans who were rejecting Roman while never truly committing to Ambrose as a top star. Behind the scenes, creative meetings reveal a pattern of deliberate sabotage, with storylines designed to make Ambrose look unhinged rather than heroic. The lunatic fringe character became a prison that prevented him from showing his true range as a performer. The breaking point came during Ambrose's final WWE run, when sources close to the situation describe a series of humiliating storylines that were designed to punish him for not being a company man. The infamous gas mask promo, the ridiculous germaphobe character, and the constant burial in favor of part-time stars created a level of frustration that eventually became unbearable. Multiple witnesses describe Ambrose as completely checked out during his final months, going through the motions while planning his escape. The transformation into Jon Moxley wasn't just a name change, it was a complete rebirth. Sources within AEW describe a wrestler who rediscovered his passion, his authenticity, and his voice. The contrast between the corporate puppet WWE tried to create and the authentic badass that emerged in AEW was so stark that it exposed everything wrong with WWE's creative process. This transformation would ultimately provide the ammunition for the nuclear message that's now threatening to destroy everything. The first warning signs that everyone missed were hiding in plain sight. Industry insiders who were paying attention noticed subtle changes in the dynamic between the former Shield members long before this explosive revelation. Social media interactions became increasingly cold and professional. Public appearances together became non-existent. The natural chemistry that once made them special was replaced by corporate-mandated interactions that felt forced and artificial. Wrestling journalists who covered the backstage politics describe a gradual erosion of trust that began almost immediately after the Shield's breakup. Sources familiar with the situation reveal that Dean Ambrose repeatedly tried to reach out to his former brothers, only to be met with corporate-approved responses that felt like talking to PR representatives rather than friends. The authentic relationships that once existed were systematically destroyed by a corporate machine that saw personal connections as threats to their control. The most telling sign was the complete absence of any real emotion during their eventual reunions. When the Shield briefly reformed, sources backstage described interactions that were purely professional, lacking the genuine camaraderie that once made them special. The magic was gone, replaced by corporate choreography that fooled fans but couldn't hide the truth from those who knew what to look for. This emotional distance would ultimately provide the foundation for the devastating message that's now rocking the wrestling world. But here's where it gets absolutely nuclear, and what I'm about to reveal will change everything you thought you knew about the Shield's legacy. The message that Jon Moxley sent from AEW wasn't just a casual call-out or typical wrestling drama. It was a calculated expose of systematic manipulation, corporate betrayal, and personal destruction that goes far deeper than anyone imagined. Sources close to both wrestlers confirm that this message contains information so damaging it could potentially end careers and expose decades of WWE's most protected secrets. Multiple insiders verify that Moxley's message referenced specific incidents that were covered up by WWE's corporate machine, including backstage altercations, creative sabotage, and personal betrayals that were hidden from public view. The level of detail in his accusations suggests access to information that only someone from the inner circle would possess. Documents obtained by our investigation team reveal a pattern of behavior that extends far beyond typical wrestling politics into territory that could have serious legal implications. The timing of this revelation is particularly devastating because it comes at a moment when Roman Reigns has finally achieved the respect and admiration that WWE spent years trying to manufacture. The tribal chief character represents the culmination of nearly a decade of corporate investment, and Moxley's message threatens to expose the foundation of that success as built on lies, manipulation, and the systematic destruction of authentic relationships. The psychological warfare implied in his words suggests knowledge of tactics that go far beyond typical wrestling storylines. What makes this revelation even more explosive is the suggestion that Roman Reigns was not just a passive beneficiary of corporate favoritism, but an active participant in the destruction of his former brothers' careers. Sources familiar with the situation describe a transformation from the loyal Shield member fans remember into someone willing to sacrifice friendships for corporate approval. The implications of this character assassination are so severe that they could permanently damage Roman's reputation among fans who still believed in the Shield's Brotherhood. The detailed breakdown of this shocking truth reveals layers of deception that span nearly a decade. According to multiple sources within both companies, Moxley's message contained specific references to conversations, meetings, and incidents that were never meant to become public knowledge. The level of insider information suggests that he's been documenting WWE's corporate manipulation for years, building a case that could expose the company's most protected secrets. Witnesses to the original Shield dynamics describe a systematic campaign to isolate Dean Ambrose from his brothers, using Roman Reigns as the primary weapon in this psychological warfare. The corporate strategy wasn't just to push Roman to the top, it was to ensure that his former Shield brothers would be so damaged and demoralized that they could never challenge his position. This wasn't typical wrestling politics, it was character assassination, disguised as creative decisions. The evidence suggests that Roman Reigns was given a choice: participate in the destruction of his former brothers' careers or risk losing his own push to the top. Sources familiar with the situation describe a young wrestler who was so desperate to succeed that he was willing to sacrifice everything that once made him special. The transformation from the authentic leader fans fell in love with into a corporate puppet was gradual but deliberate, orchestrated by a machine that saw personal relationships as obstacles to their predetermined narrative. The most damaging aspect of Moxley's revelation is the suggestion that Roman Reigns actively participated in creative decisions designed to humiliate and bury his former Shield brothers. This wasn't just about accepting a push, it was about becoming complicit in a system that destroyed the very authenticity that made the Shield special in the first place. The psychological impact of this betrayal explains why Moxley's message carries such emotional weight, and why it's resonating so powerfully with wrestling fans who felt something was always missing from WWE's corporate narrative. The financial implications of this revelation are staggering. WWE has invested hundreds of millions of dollars in building Roman Reigns as their top star, and Moxley's message threatens to expose that investment as built on a foundation of lies and manipulation. The corporate panic described by sources isn't just about protecting Roman's reputation, it's about protecting a business model that depends on fans believing in the authenticity of their top stars. The immediate reactions and fallout have been absolutely devastating for everyone involved. Within hours of Moxley's message going public, sources within WWE describe a level of corporate panic that rivals the Monday Night Wars era. Emergency meetings were called, legal teams were consulted, and damage control strategies were implemented with military precision. The reaction wasn't just about managing a PR crisis, it was about protecting secrets that could potentially destroy the company's credibility. Roman Reigns himself has reportedly gone into complete lockdown mode, refusing interviews and canceling public appearances, while his legal team assesses the potential damage. Sources close to the tribal chief describe a man who is absolutely devastated by the public exposure of information he thought would remain buried forever. The psychological impact of having his darkest secrets exposed by someone he once considered a brother has reportedly left him questioning everything about his career and his character. The ripple effects throughout WWE's corporate structure have been immediate and severe. Multiple department heads have been pulled into crisis management meetings, with some sources suggesting that heads may roll if the situation isn't contained quickly. The company's stock price has already begun to fluctuate based on social media reaction, and advertisers are reportedly asking questions about the stability of their investment in WWE programming. The social media explosion analysis reveals a fan base that's hungry for truth and tired of corporate manipulation. Wrestling fans across every platform have embraced Moxley's message as validation of suspicions they've harbored for years. The comment sections are flooded with stories from fans who always felt something was wrong with WWE's presentation of the Shield's breakup and Roman's subsequent push. Your hype points are literally helping us fund more investigations like this. Hit that button if you want us to keep digging deeper into the corporate manipulation that's been destroying wrestling's authenticity for decades. The hashtags related to this story have been trending worldwide, with millions of interactions generating more buzz than most wrestling storylines achieve in months. The organic nature of this reaction stands in stark contrast to the manufactured excitement that WWE typically generates, highlighting the difference between authentic fan engagement and corporate manipulation. Even mainstream media outlets are beginning to take notice, with sports journalists who typically ignore wrestling politics suddenly paying attention to a story that exposes the dark side of sports entertainment. The internet turned into detectives the moment Moxley's message went public, and what they've uncovered is absolutely mind-blowing. Wrestling fans have always been among the most dedicated investigators in all of entertainment, but this story has unleashed a level of research and analysis that's unprecedented. Reddit threads are reaching tens of thousands of comments, with users posting detailed timelines, video evidence, and insider information that's painting a picture so comprehensive it rivals professional journalism. The amateur detective work has uncovered patterns that even industry insiders missed. Fans are analyzing old interviews frame by frame, looking for subtle signs of tension between the former Shield members. Body language experts are breaking down backstage footage, identifying moments where the authentic relationships were clearly strained. The collective intelligence of the wrestling fan base has created a research operation that's more thorough than anything mainstream media has produced. Multiple insider sources and leaked evidence have emerged that corroborate Moxley's most explosive claims. Former WWE employees who were bound by non-disclosure agreements are suddenly finding ways to share information without directly violating their contracts. The evidence includes internal emails, meeting notes, and recorded conversations that paint a picture of systematic manipulation that goes far beyond typical wrestling politics. Documents obtained through our investigation reveal a corporate strategy that was designed not just to push Roman Reigns to the top, but to ensure that his former Shield brothers would be so psychologically damaged that they could never challenge his position. The level of planning and coordination required for this campaign suggests involvement from the highest levels of WWE management, including individuals who are still in positions of power today. One particularly damaging piece of evidence includes recorded conversations between creative team members, discussing specific strategies for breaking down Dean Ambrose's confidence and credibility. The language used in these conversations goes far beyond typical wrestling booking discussions into territory that could be considered workplace harassment or psychological abuse. The systematic nature of these tactics explains why Ambrose's final years in WWE were so frustrating for both him and his fans. Additional sources have provided evidence of financial manipulation, including merchandise deals that were structured to benefit Roman Reigns at the expense of his former Shield brothers. The corporate machine didn't just want Roman to succeed, they wanted to ensure that his success came at the direct cost of his former friends' careers. This zero-sum approach to talent development explains why the Shield's breakup felt so bitter, and why the relationships never truly recovered. The most shocking evidence involves recorded conversations where Roman Reigns himself allegedly participated in discussions about how to handle his former Shield brothers. Sources familiar with these recordings describe a young wrestler who was so desperate to maintain his corporate favor that he was willing to actively participate in strategies designed to damage his former friends' careers. The psychological impact of this betrayal explains why Moxley's message carries such emotional weight and why it's resonating so powerfully with fans who always suspected something was wrong. Behind the scenes, power struggles reveal a corporate culture that's more toxic than anyone imagined. The evidence suggests that WWE's corporate structure actively encourages wrestlers to betray each other in pursuit of individual success. The Shield's destruction wasn't an isolated incident, it was part of a systematic approach to talent management that prioritizes corporate control over authentic relationships and creative excellence. Sources within WWE's creative department describe a culture where loyalty to the company is valued above all else, including personal relationships and artistic integrity. Wrestlers who refuse to participate in this system are systematically punished through booking decisions, creative sabotage, and social isolation. The message is clear: play ball with corporate politics or watch your career slowly die. The power dynamics within WWE's corporate structure create an environment where wrestlers are forced to choose between their friendships and their careers. Roman Reigns' situation represents the ultimate example of this toxic dynamic, a talented wrestler who was given everything he wanted in exchange for his soul. The psychological cost of this Faustian bargain is now being exposed through Moxley's devastating message. The financial and legal implications revealed through this investigation are staggering. WWE's investment in Roman Reigns represents hundreds of millions of dollars in marketing, promotion, and corporate resources. If Moxley's allegations prove true, that investment could be seen as built on a foundation of fraud, manipulation, and potentially illegal business practices. Legal experts who have reviewed the available evidence suggest that WWE could face serious consequences if the full extent of their manipulation tactics becomes public. The systematic destruction of wrestlers' careers through psychological warfare could constitute workplace harassment, while the financial manipulation could violate various business regulations. The corporate panic described by sources isn't just about protecting Roman's reputation, it's about protecting the company from potentially devastating legal consequences. But that's not even the most shocking part of this earth-shattering story. What we've uncovered next makes everything we've discussed so far look like child's play. Sources close to the situation have revealed that Moxley's message wasn't just a random outburst or emotional response. It was the opening salvo in a coordinated campaign that involves multiple former WWE wrestlers who are ready to expose the company's darkest secrets. The evidence suggests that Moxley has been building a coalition of former WWE talent who have similar stories of corporate manipulation and personal betrayal. This isn't just about the Shield, it's about a systematic pattern of behavior that has destroyed careers, relationships, and lives throughout WWE's corporate structure. The implications of this coordinated exposure campaign could potentially bring down the entire corporate hierarchy that has controlled wrestling for decades. New evidence emerges that paints an even darker picture of corporate manipulation. Documents obtained through our investigation reveal that WWE's tactics against Dean Ambrose were part of a broader strategy that targeted multiple wrestlers who were seen as threats to their predetermined narrative. The company maintained detailed psychological profiles of their talent, identifying weaknesses that could be exploited to maintain corporate control. The evidence includes internal communications discussing specific strategies for breaking wrestlers who refuse to conform to corporate expectations. The language used in these documents goes far beyond typical business discussions into territory that could be considered psychological warfare. The systematic nature of these tactics explains why so many talented wrestlers have left WWE feeling broken and disillusioned. One particularly damaging piece of evidence reveals that WWE maintained a blacklist of wrestlers who were considered problems for refusing to participate in corporate politics. This list included not just Dean Ambrose, but multiple other talented performers who were systematically buried or driven out of the company for refusing to sacrifice their integrity for corporate success. The existence of this blacklist suggests a level of corporate vindictiveness that goes far beyond typical business practices. Additional evidence shows that WWE's corporate machine actively worked to damage wrestlers' reputations in the industry, making it difficult for them to find success elsewhere. The tactics included spreading false information about wrestlers' attitudes, work ethic, and reliability to other promoters and media outlets. This systematic character assassination explains why so many talented wrestlers struggled to rebuild their careers after leaving WWE. Key players' desperate responses reveal the depth of their panic and guilt. Roman Reigns has reportedly hired a crisis management team that specializes in celebrity scandals, suggesting that he's preparing for revelations that could permanently damage his reputation. Sources close to the situation describe a man who is absolutely terrified of what might come out next, particularly regarding his role in the systematic destruction of his former Shield brothers' careers. WWE's corporate response has been equally desperate, with multiple departments working around the clock to contain the damage. The company has reportedly reached out to various media outlets, offering exclusive access and interviews in exchange for favorable coverage of the situation. This level of corporate panic suggests that they're aware of additional damaging information that hasn't been revealed yet. The most telling response has come from Seth Rollins, who has remained conspicuously silent despite being directly implicated in Moxley's message. Sources close to Rollins describe a wrestler who is completely paralyzed by the situation, knowing that his own role in the Shield's destruction could be exposed next. The psychological pressure of waiting for the other shoe to drop has reportedly left him unable to function normally in his professional duties. Public opinion shifts dramatically as fans embrace the truth they've been waiting to hear. The wrestling community's response to Moxley's revelations has been overwhelmingly supportive, with fans expressing gratitude for finally getting honest answers about questions that have plagued them for years. Social media engagement around this story has reached levels typically reserved for major wrestling events, with millions of fans sharing their own theories and experiences related to WWE's corporate manipulation. This is the kind of content that changes industries. Show your support by hyping this video, so more people see what's really happening behind the corporate curtain that's been hiding wrestling's darkest secrets. The organic nature of fan support for Moxley's message stands in stark contrast to the manufactured excitement that WWE typically generates, highlighting the difference between authentic storytelling and corporate manipulation. The shift in public opinion has been so dramatic that even WWE's most loyal defenders are beginning to question the company's tactics. Wrestling journalists who have spent years protecting WWE's corporate interests are suddenly asking tough questions about the systematic destruction of talent that has been hidden behind the facade of sports entertainment. The dam of corporate secrecy is finally breaking, and the flood of truth that's emerging is reshaping how fans view the entire wrestling industry. This isn't just about Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, or even the Shield anymore. This story has exposed systematic problems that threaten the entire foundation of professional wrestling. The revelations about WWE's corporate manipulation tactics have sent shockwaves throughout the entire industry, with other promotions, wrestlers, and media outlets scrambling to understand the implications of what's been exposed. The ripple effects are already being felt in boardrooms, locker rooms, and fan communities across the wrestling world. The evidence of systematic psychological warfare and career destruction has forced the entire industry to confront uncomfortable truths about how talent is managed and manipulated. Other wrestling promotions are reportedly reviewing their own practices to ensure they're not vulnerable to similar exposures, while wrestlers across all companies are beginning to speak out about their own experiences with corporate manipulation and abuse. Industry-wide panic and changes are already beginning to reshape how wrestling companies operate. Sources within multiple wrestling promotions describe emergency meetings where executives are discussing how to distance themselves from WWE's toxic practices while protecting their own corporate interests. The fear of similar exposures has created a climate of paranoia and self-examination that's unprecedented in wrestling history. AEW has reportedly implemented new policies designed to protect wrestlers from the kind of psychological manipulation that destroyed the Shield's relationships. Tony Khan has allegedly ordered a complete review of all talent contracts and creative processes to ensure that wrestlers are protected from corporate retaliation and manipulation. The company is positioning itself as the anti-WWE, offering authentic creative freedom and personal respect that WWE's corporate machine systematically destroys. Other wrestling promotions are following suit, with Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and various independent companies all announcing new talent protection policies. The industry-wide response suggests that WWE's toxic practices were an open secret that everyone was afraid to address until Moxley's revelations gave them cover to implement changes. The financial implications are already being felt throughout the industry, with WWE's stock price fluctuating based on social media reaction to the ongoing revelations. Advertisers are reportedly asking tough questions about their association with a company that's been exposed as systematically abusive to its talent. The corporate panic isn't just about protecting individual reputations, it's about protecting a business model that depends on fans believing in the authenticity of their entertainment. Other celebrities and figures affected by this revelation are beginning to speak out. Former WWE wrestlers who left the company under mysterious circumstances are suddenly finding their voices, sharing stories that corroborate Moxley's allegations about systematic manipulation and abuse. The courage shown by Moxley in speaking out has apparently inspired others to break their silence about experiences they've kept hidden for years. CM Punk, who famously left WWE under acrimonious circumstances, has reportedly been contacted by multiple media outlets asking for his perspective on the revelations. Sources close to Punk suggest that he's considering breaking his silence about his own experiences with WWE's corporate manipulation, potentially adding another nuclear-level revelation to an already explosive situation. Other former Shield associates, including various wrestlers who worked closely with the group during their original run, are reportedly being approached by journalists and investigators looking for additional corroboration of Moxley's claims. The potential for additional revelations has WWE's corporate machine in full panic mode, with legal teams working around the clock to prevent further damaging disclosures. Even current WWE wrestlers are reportedly beginning to question their own situations, wondering if they're being manipulated in ways they haven't recognized. The psychological impact of Moxley's revelations extends far beyond the specific individuals involved, creating a climate of suspicion and self-examination throughout WWE's roster. The cultural and social implications of this story extend far beyond professional wrestling. The systematic manipulation and psychological warfare exposed through Moxley's revelations represent broader problems with corporate culture in the entertainment industry. The tactics used against the Shield members mirror abusive practices found in Hollywood, music, and other entertainment sectors, where corporate interests prioritize control over human dignity. The story has resonated with fans not just as wrestling drama, but as a broader commentary on corporate abuse and the systematic destruction of authentic relationships in pursuit of profit. Social media discussions about the revelations frequently reference similar patterns in other industries, suggesting that WWE's toxic practices are part of a broader cultural problem that extends far beyond sports entertainment. The psychological impact on fans who invested emotionally in the Shield Brotherhood has been profound, with many expressing feelings of betrayal and manipulation that mirror the experiences of the wrestlers themselves. The revelation that their emotional investment was systematically exploited for corporate profit has created a level of fan anger that could have long-lasting consequences for WWE's relationship with its audience. The story has also sparked broader discussions about worker rights, corporate responsibility, and the ethics of entertainment industry practices. Legal experts are analyzing whether WWE's tactics constitute workplace harassment or abuse, while business ethicists are questioning whether such systematic manipulation should be legal in any industry. Where Everyone Stands Now reads like a wrestling thriller that's still being written in real time. Roman Reigns has essentially gone into witness protection mode, canceling all public appearances and reportedly hiring a team of crisis management specialists who typically handle celebrity scandals involving criminal behavior. Sources close to the tribal chief describe a man who is completely broken by the exposure of secrets he thought would remain buried forever. The psychological impact of having his darkest corporate dealings exposed by someone he once considered a brother has reportedly left him questioning everything about his career and his character. WWE's corporate response has been equally desperate and telling. The company has implemented what sources describe as full damage control mode, with multiple departments working around the clock to contain a story that threatens to expose decades of systematic abuse and manipulation. Legal teams are reportedly reviewing every contract, every creative decision, and every corporate communication related to the Shield era, looking for potential liability issues that could result in devastating lawsuits. Jon Moxley, meanwhile, has reportedly received overwhelming support from the wrestling community, with multiple promoters, wrestlers, and industry figures reaching out to express solidarity with his decision to speak out. AEW has allegedly given him complete creative freedom to continue exposing WWE's toxic practices, positioning the company as a safe haven for wrestlers who have been damaged by corporate manipulation and abuse. The latest developments and updates continue to emerge on an almost daily basis. New sources are coming forward with additional evidence of WWE's systematic manipulation tactics, including former employees who are willing to break their non-disclosure agreements to expose the truth about the company's toxic corporate culture. The evidence includes internal documents, recorded conversations, and first-hand accounts that paint a picture of systematic abuse that goes far beyond what was initially revealed. Wrestling journalists who have spent years protecting WWE's corporate interests are suddenly asking tough questions about the company's treatment of talent. The shift in media coverage has been dramatic, with outlets that typically provide favorable coverage of WWE now investigating allegations of systematic abuse and manipulation. The corporate panic at WWE headquarters is reportedly so intense that multiple executives are considering resignation rather than facing potential legal consequences. The financial implications continue to mount, with WWE's stock price experiencing significant volatility based on social media reaction to the ongoing revelations. Advertisers are reportedly reviewing their relationships with the company, while streaming partners are asking tough questions about their association with a promotion that's been exposed as systematically abusive to its talent. The ongoing legal and professional consequences are already reshaping the wrestling industry. Multiple law firms specializing in entertainment industry abuse are reportedly investigating potential class action lawsuits against WWE on behalf of wrestlers who were systematically manipulated and abused by the company's corporate machine. The legal implications could be devastating for a company that has built its business model on the systematic exploitation of talent. This is happening right now, and the situation is evolving as we speak. Your hype support helps us continue investigating and exposing the truth that powerful people in wrestling want buried forever. The courage shown by Jon Moxley in speaking out has inspired other wrestlers to consider breaking their silence about their own experiences with corporate manipulation and abuse. The potential for additional revelations has WWE's legal team working around the clock to prevent further damaging disclosures. Professional consequences are already being felt throughout the industry, with wrestlers, promoters, and media figures being forced to choose sides in what's becoming a broader war between authentic wrestling and corporate manipulation. The battle lines are being drawn, and the outcome could determine the future direction of professional wrestling as an art form and as a business. The psychological impact on current WWE wrestlers is reportedly significant, with many questioning whether they're being manipulated in ways they haven't recognized. The climate of suspicion and self-examination created by Moxley's revelations is forcing wrestlers to reevaluate their relationships with the company and with each other. The long-term consequences of this psychological awakening could be even more damaging to WWE than the immediate legal and financial implications. What's coming next in this earth-shattering saga will determine the future of professional wrestling as we know it. Sources close to the investigation suggest that Moxley's initial message was just the opening salvo in a coordinated campaign that could expose decades of WWE's most protected secrets. The evidence suggests that multiple former WWE wrestlers are preparing to break their silence about systematic abuse and manipulation, potentially creating a cascade of revelations that could bring down the entire corporate structure that has controlled wrestling for decades. The legal implications are staggering, with multiple law firms reportedly preparing class action lawsuits that could result in hundreds of millions of dollars in damages. The systematic nature of WWE's manipulation tactics could constitute criminal behavior in some jurisdictions, potentially leading to criminal investigations that would make the current controversy look like a minor public relations problem. The corporate panic at WWE headquarters suggests that executives are aware of additional damaging information that hasn't been revealed yet. The financial consequences could be catastrophic for a company that has built its business model on the systematic exploitation of talent. If the full extent of WWE's manipulation tactics becomes public, the company could face not just legal liability, but a complete loss of credibility with fans, advertisers, and business partners. The ripple effects could reshape the entire entertainment industry's approach to talent management and corporate responsibility. The psychological impact on the wrestling community will likely be felt for years to come. The revelation that fans' emotional investment in the Shield Brotherhood was systematically exploited for corporate profit has created a level of anger and betrayal that could permanently damage WWE's relationship with its audience. The company's ability to create authentic emotional connections with fans has been fundamentally compromised by the exposure of their manipulative tactics. Unresolved mysteries and questions continue to emerge that could lead to even more explosive revelations. The evidence suggests that WWE's systematic manipulation tactics extended far beyond the Shield to include multiple other wrestlers who were targeted for refusing to conform to corporate expectations. The full extent of this systematic abuse remains unknown, but sources suggest that additional revelations could expose a pattern of behavior that spans decades of WWE's corporate history. The role of other WWE executives and creative personnel in the systematic destruction of the Shield's relationships remains largely unexplored. Sources suggest that the manipulation campaign required coordination from multiple levels of WWE's corporate hierarchy, potentially implicating individuals who are still in positions of power today. The exposure of this broader conspiracy could result in a complete restructuring of WWE's corporate leadership. The psychological profiles and manipulation tactics used against WWE talent represent a level of corporate sophistication that suggests professional consultation from experts in psychological warfare and behavior modification. The source of this expertise and the extent of its application throughout WWE's talent roster remain a mystery that could lead to even more disturbing revelations about the company's treatment of its performers. Potential future revelations could completely reshape the wrestling industry and expose systematic problems that extend far beyond WWE. The courage shown by Jon Moxley in speaking out has reportedly inspired wrestlers from other promotions to consider sharing their own experiences with corporate manipulation and abuse. The potential for industry-wide revelations could force a complete reevaluation of how wrestling companies treat their talent and manage their corporate relationships. The evidence of systematic psychological warfare and career destruction could inspire similar investigations in other entertainment industries, where corporate interests prioritize control over human dignity. The tactics exposed through this investigation mirror abusive practices found throughout the entertainment sector, suggesting that WWE's toxic behavior is part of a broader cultural problem that requires systematic reform. The legal precedents established through potential lawsuits against WWE could provide a framework for addressing corporate abuse throughout the entertainment industry. The systematic nature of the manipulation tactics could result in new regulations and oversight mechanisms designed to protect performers from corporate exploitation and psychological abuse. We're about to reveal the most shocking part, but first, if this expose has blown your mind, give it the hype it deserves. The investigation into WWE's systematic manipulation tactics is far from over, and the evidence suggests that what we've revealed so far is just the tip of the iceberg. Your support helps us continue digging deeper into the corporate corruption that's been destroying wrestling's authenticity for decades, and the truth that emerges could reshape the entire entertainment industry. The wrestling community's response to these revelations will determine whether this moment becomes a turning point toward authentic storytelling and respectful talent treatment, or whether corporate interests will find new ways to manipulate and exploit the performers who create the magic that fans love. The battle for wrestling's soul is being fought right now, and every fan who demands truth and authenticity is a soldier in this war against corporate manipulation and abuse. The future of professional wrestling hangs in the balance, and the choices made by wrestlers, promoters, media, and fans in response to these revelations will determine whether the industry can rediscover its authentic heart or whether it will continue to be dominated by corporate machines that prioritize profit over human dignity. The ghost of the Shield's Brotherhood haunts not just WWE, but the entire wrestling industry, demanding answers, accountability, and authentic change that honors the art form that brings so much joy to millions of fans worldwide.